Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to our lecture today on lesson 64 of the semester second semester B. Yeah, as we know now, we are wrapping up this year. So hopefully we'll see you on the third day next year. Yeah, we are heading towards our final assessment S1. That will be the submission will be on the 14th of November. So you have more time to start preparing for this documentary, for this assessment now, to give you an ammunition how to that will help you to execute this documentary or this assessment successfully. We are looking at the 5 Cs of cinematography as defined by Joseph V. Moshelli. Yeah, these 5 Cs of cinematography, they we'll be looking at the camera angles, we're looking at the composition, we're looking at the cutting, the close up, as well as the continuity. So for you to get an overview of what we will be talking about on these 5 Cs of cinematography, I'm going to share the video with you that will help you, and then after this video, I'll have a few videos, like 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think just round about there. It won't take too much of your time, but it gives you just an overview of what cinematography entails, and it thereafter I'll give you some what practical assignment for you to do to practice these 5 Cs of cinematography. Just do a short practical assignment. Okay, without further ado, without wasting any time, let me just get these videos and get an overview of what this cinematography entails.
The art of photography and camera work distinguish an aspiring filmmaker from a true cinematographer. Perfecting this art is an ongoing process that takes time and experience. The 5 Cs of cinematography outlined by Joseph V. Moshelli can guide the production, shooting, and editing of a project to the highest quality outcome. Camera angles. The camera angles lets viewers know which point of view is in place. For example, a narrated scene from a character's own viewpoint could be shot differently to indicate their subjective experience. The positioning of the shot lets audience understand the relationships between the characters and with their environment. Continuity. In order to hold a viewer's attention throughout the story, consistency is essential. Objects that suddenly appear or disappear can break the spell, cause confusion, one shot to another. The strength of a story often depends on how it is cut. When putting together a sequence, the order and pacing of shots become paramount in evoking the desired effect. Close-ups. The amount of space taken up by an object or character can shape the meaning of a scene. Close-up, detailed shots are used to give the viewer access to intimate details of a character's emotions. Composition. Composition refers to how the elements in a shot are arranged. Lighting, colors, and spacing can shape how the audience relates to the story. The composition also reflects the deeper style of cinematographer and director, acting as their signature in the craft of filmmaking. The great practitioners make all this look easy, but newcomers soon find out how much work goes into a quality shoot. Like any other art form, cinematography takes practice to learn and a lifetime to master. Even so, it is only one piece of a much larger storytelling experience. But when it all comes together, the final products make the whole journey worthwhile. To learn more about incorporating cinematography into your marketing, Contact lexicon today.
Thank you for that video. It kind of give us a brief overview on what the 5 Cs of cinematography are. And then I'm gonna move on to the next video. Got it.
In the art of filmmaking, camera angles are more than just technical decisions. They are the filmmaker's tool to shape the audience experience and emotion. Each angle offers a different and unique lens through which a story unfolds, influencing how viewers perceive characters, actions, and setting. Among the most impactful are the objective, subjective, and point of view angle, each serving a distinct narrative purpose. These angles determine whether the audience remains a passive observer, shares in the character's internal experiences, or sees the world through the character's eyes. By carefully choosing and combining these perspectives, filmmakers create immersive, emotional, and dynamic visual narrative. The objective camera angle serves as the storyteller's neutral lens, capturing the scene from a detached and impartial view. This perspective does not belong to any character within the narrative. Instead, it represents a fly-on-the-wall observation, allowing the audience to watch events unfold naturally. It's commonly used to establish relationships between characters, convey spatial awareness, or provide an overarching view of a situation without emotional bias. By keeping the audience outside of the action, this angle encourages a more analytical or reflective understanding of the story. For instance, a wide shot of a battlefield might show the full scope of the conflict, letting viewers absorb the chaos and strategy without the influence of a single character's emotion. This angle ensures storytelling clarity and provides a strong foundation for scenes by grounding the audience in a stable, objective perspective. The subjective camera angle is a direct invitation for the audience to step into the shoes of a character, experiencing the world as they do. This perspective places the camera in the character's position, simulating their vision and, in some cases, their emotion. By aligning with their viewpoint, it creates an intense personal connection between the viewer and the character. Subjective angles are often used to heighten empathy, fear, or excitement by directly immersing the audience into a character's experience. In a scene where a character is disoriented after an injury, the camera might blur and sway to replicate their dizziness, making the audience feel the same vulnerability. This approach is particularly effective in emotionally charged moments, or when a filmmaker wants the viewer to fully understand a character's perspective. Used sparingly, it can have a profound impact on the storytelling. The point of view, or POV angle, bridges the gap between the objective and subjective angle, showing the audience what a character sees without fully immersing them in the character's perspective. This shot mimics the character's line of sight but retains a slight external vantage, allowing viewers to interpret the scene from their own emotional stance. It is a powerful narrative tool for revealing key details or building tension. For instance, in a suspenseful scene, a POV shot might show a character peering through a crack in the door, with the audience sharing the restricted view and the growing apprehension. Often paired with reaction shots, this angle creates a cause and effect dynamic that enhance dramatic storytelling, as the audience can see both the subject of the character's gaze and their emotional response. This technique is versatile, balancing intimacy with detachment to engage the viewer in a meaningful way. In the end, mastering these angles means mastering the power to control not just what the audience sees, but how they feel and connect with the story unfolding before them.
All right, folks. Let's move now to another video. I just want to go more quickly so that I don't take up too much of your time. I don't want I don't want to make you bored. So just want to imbibe you with this information so that you can be able to put it into practice going forward. And I encourage you guys to start now. So work on your documentary. So after this, I'm going to give you an overview of, okay. Yeah, this is it.
This video is a part of a full course called Basic Shooting, and if you enjoyed it, chances are you're going to want to watch the rest. click on the link in the description to watch the full course. In this video, we'll discuss the basic rules of composition, covering aspect ratio, the rule of thirds, framing, balance, leading lines, and depth of field. Your frame is your canvas. Your goal is to fill it with things that are useful to your story and arrange them in a way that is pleasing to the viewer. By the end of this video, you'll have learned what makes a good shot and how to achieve one yourself. Composition is the art of arranging objects in a frame. They're actually shapes and alignments that people find pleasing. But movie composition also needs to tell a story. The arrangement of your objects and actors in a frame can add to your storytelling by emphasizing some elements and de-emphasizing others. In a big-budget Hollywood film, the director has the expert input of the director of photography. In smaller budget movies, the director often does double duty. When speaking on filmmaking, Alexander McKendrick, teacher of filmmaking at Cal Arts, says framing and editing determine the eye path of the viewer. It might not be too much to say that what a film director really directs is his audience's attention. If you're doing everything right, every frame of your movie should be able to be plucked out at random, stuck in a frame, and hung on a gallery wall. This is a tall order, and few people succeed in it without lots of time, big budgets, great editors, and patient investors. Your budget and timeline may keep you from doing this, but there are things you can do from the very beginning to make sure that your movie looks as good as it can. Pictures are pictures regardless of how many you shoot. The rules of composition are the same for video as they are for photos. However, like everything else, it's complicated. To understand the basics of composition, we need to start out with aspect ratio. Put simply, aspect ratio is the ratio of horizontal to vertical dimensions of an image. The aspect ratio of 35mm film is 3:2, which is why photo prints are 6:4 inches. The aspect ratio of most video is 16:9. The 16:9 frame means that landscapes look fantastic, but putting a single person in the frame is more challenging. For the most part, people are vertical objects, and most of your frame is going to be empty. So what do you fill the empty space with? That's composition. One other obvious thing that affects composition of a movie frame is the fact that things are moving in and sometimes moving through it, and often your camera frame itself is moving. This is why filmmakers need lots of rehearsal. Actors moving through a frame have to hit their marks at extremely predictable times, and your camera operator needs to accommodate motion through the frame and motion of the frame, all while keeping pleasing arrangement that drives the story. All that said, can you get a book about still image composition and use it as the basis of your movie composition? Well, absolutely. The rules of composition hold true for film, painting, and still images alike. That moves us on to the rule of thirds. If you leave here with one thing, it should be the rule of thirds. It's the fundamental rule of composition. Divide the screen into thirds with 4 lines. Like a tic-tac-toe game, your objects of interest should fall at the intersection of 2 of these lines. Some cinematographers are more rigid about it than others, but it's very possible to find a movie whose every shot does not deviate from this. We mentioned before that people are vertical and movie screens are horizontal. This means that to get a person in a frame, you need to either make them very small or crop them. Both of these are perfectly acceptable. Let's take a look at Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. In this close-up of Harrison Ford, Scott and his cinematographer have chosen to chop him off at the shoulders and the top of the head to put his eyes at the intersection of the top horizontal line and the right vertical line. The eyes are the important thing. Unlike in the real world, in cinematic and photographic composition, you can chop off the top of someone's head with impunity. This is not true of people's chins. Chins need to stay in the frame unless you chop off an equal portion of the top of the head. Now, we look at people's eyes. We instinctively look at what other people are looking at. We have a deep down belief that the person inside a body is accessible through the eyes. And this is universal. When your cat or your dog wants to communicate with you, they look at your eyes, and they haven't read any psychology books. When framing a shot, if the eyes are in focus, you can get away with a lot of other things not being focused. In this shot from Raiders of the Lost Ark, Harrison Ford returns, here seen completely in silhouette with the exception of his right eye, looking weary, which along with his distinctive hat brings personality to the shot. Also notice the out of focus white areas in the left and the right. These serve to balance the frame. Balance the frame, you ask? Imagine your frame as a shadow box that you're putting items into and that sits on a fulcrum in the center. Balancing the left and right sides normally gives off a feeling of harmony, and unbalanced frame, one of tension. While going counter to the rule of thirds, sometimes completely symmetrical framing with the object of interest in the exact center can be used extremely effectively. Some directors are slaves to symmetry, and when used properly, it can be extremely powerful. One of the most arresting users of symmetry was Stanley Kubrick, who put the rule of thirds in the back seat and replaced it with an obsessive adherence to center framing and symmetry, giving us some incredibly powerful images that depict order so perfect it becomes somewhat menacing. Here's Johnny! Balance does not have to be symmetrical, though. Objects on one side of the screen can be balanced with objects on the other side of the screen that aren't their mirror image. In this shot from Pulp Fiction, we have Bruce Willis on the left-hand side of the screen, but the frame is balanced by the license plates. We follow lines like roads. Leading lines are usually imaginary lines that go from one object to another to draw our attention from a main object of focus to a secondary one. Going back to Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, we have a perfect example of leading lines, and this time they're actually lines. The banisters lead our attention right to the people on the left side of the screen. Note also the strong use of the rule of thirds and the post in the foreground to provide balance. The camera can emphasize what's important and de-emphasize other things by using depth of field, or DOF. Depth of field is the area of a shot that's in focus. DOF can either be deep, meaning everything's in focus, like Kubrick's image from 2001, or it can be shallow, meaning few things are in focus, like both the shots of Harrison Ford from Blade Runner and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Also notice in the close-up of Ford from Blade Runner the use of the out-of-focus building in the background to balance the frame. There are lots of books on composition, but a really good way to study is to watch good movies. How are your favorite directors using depth of field? How rigorously do they adhere to the rule of thirds? How do they use centered subjects to create tension, or use leading lines to guide your eye? Pay attention to composition while you're watching movies and television. Answer what items are in the frame and why. What do they add to the story? And what are the background objects adding to the mood of the scene? In the next video, we'll move on to how to...
Okay, now folks, thank you. You have all the rules of composition in cinematography that you can apply in your videos. Remember, in our lecture yesterday, we said once you have learned all these cinematography rules, and you know the camera angles, your composition, your rule of thirds, your red lines, and your continuity and all that jazz. And so it is not wise for you to just so much throw everything into your documentary, into your filming, without any reasoning. Remember, I said every shot that you take it must be motivated, and you don't, like, let's say for instance, if you pen, if you do your pen, you don't just pen left, right, left, right, left, right. I used to call that a horse piping. You don't want to horse pipe your camera. So your pen must be motivated. If you pen from something to something, and you must know why you use your pen, what the pen is used for. Most of the time, your pen is used to reveal information. If, say, I'm sitting here and something is happening on the other side that you feel your audience needs to see, then you pen to that particular action or activity that is happening on the other side. So you pen from this subject to that particular action, and it depends now the type of pen. You pen smoothly to that particular action, or you just use your whip pen quickly so that it doesn't fade out before you capture it. That you can do in, say, most of the time in the live events. But in a structured situation where you do your interviews and in a documentary that you have done research for or about, you won't be needing the quick pen that much. It's kind of, unless you want to solicit some emotion or some reaction from your audience. Remember that I have said, every shot that you take, it must be motivated, and you must have the reason why you do that. Let's move other to, I think this should be the last video of this lesson that we can have a look at. Well, this will be the last video. Looking at the rule of thirds and the depth of thirds. Right, this is what we are going to look at right now, and you also must be motivated, or sorry, you must know why you use that particular shot or particular transition in your things. So let's just share this video quickly, then I will wrap up. And okay, I say
Film composition refers to how characters and objects are placed on the screen. A central guideline of film composition is the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds breaks the frame into 3 vertical sections, left, center, and right, and 3 horizontal sections, top, middle, and bottom. Cinematographers use this grid to determine the best placement of subjects within the frame. For example, characters tend to be placed on or near the 2 vertical lines, with important subject matter typically placed at or near one of the 4 intersections. The top horizontal line is often used to place character eyes. In these examples, notice how characters are aligned with the grid and how one or more of the most important elements of the shot are on or near one of the 4 intersections. The grid breaks up the frame and helps cinematographers make artistic decisions about the placement of subjects. So far, we've looked at how the rule of thirds is used in 2 dimensions, with the vertical, left, center, right, and the horizontal, top, middle, bottom. But there is an important 3rd dimension, depth. There are 3 levels of depth: foreground, middle ground, and background. Subjects placed in the foreground tend to have more weight and narrative significance than subjects in the middle ground or the background. For example, in this shot, Charles Kane dominates the foreground at a moment of power when firing his best friend Jebediah, who happens to be in the middle ground, with the powerless Mr. Bernstein helplessly observing from the background. But watch how depth is used in this scene from later in the film, when Kane loses his power and files for bankruptcy.
With respect to the said newspaper, the said Charles Foster Kane hereby relinquishes all control thereof, and of the syndicates pertaining thereto, and any and all other newspaper, press, and publishing properties of any kind whatsoever, and agrees to abandon all claim.
Which means we're bust. All right.
Well, out of
All right, Mr. Bernstein. I read it, Mr. Thatcher. Let me sign it.
too old to call me Mr. Thatcher, Charles.
You're too old to be called anything else. We're always too old.
Now it is the bankruptcy papers and Mr. Bernstein that dominate the foreground, while Kane moves to the background. In this scene,
The framing suggests that the bankruptcy papers hold more narrative significance than the once powerful king. In this next example, notice how subject placement follows the rule of thirds, and depth places Theo pouring a drink in the foreground, Jasper telling a story in the middle ground, and Key flipping through photos in the background. Let's watch the short scene, analyze how it uses composition afterward.
Yeah, there you go. Julian and Theo met among a million protesters in a rally by chance. But they were there because of what they believed in the first place. They wanted to change the world and their faith. Yeah. But by chance, Dylan was born. You think? Yes. It had been about your magical child. Youth. Their faith. What happened to the child? He was a sweet little dream man. 2 legs, big feet, 2 lungs, 2,000 feet. Along came the flu. And then by chance, it was gone. See, Theo's faith lost out chance. So, why bother if life's going to be some choices?
If we overlay the rule of thirds grid, you will notice that it is Theo's face that is on one of the important intersections. Further, by placing Theo in the foreground, he is given narrative significance. The composition in this scene communicates that it is Theo's reaction to Jasper's story that is important. It is important we hear the story, but our eyes are drawn to Theo as we experience the sad story through his pain. So far, the examples we have seen have had a relatively static composition, meaning once subjects are placed, they do not really change position. The one exception is when Charles King changed composition by walking from the foreground to the background. Within a scene, composition can change by either moving the subject or by moving the camera. Take a look at this final example and notice how often composition changes, sometimes by moving characters, but more often by moving the camera.
One with the Tesseract is what true Loki choose, and his elements. It is a signal to all the realms that the Earth is ready for a higher form of war. Higher form? Forced our hand. We had to come up with nuclear deterrent, because that always counts everything. Remind me again how you made your fortune start. I'm sure if you still made weapons, start with neck deep. Wait, hold on. How is this now about me? Is it everything? I thought she was the more bold. Excuse me, did we come to your planet? All stuff like that? You're not my
People is really that naive. Shield monitors potential threats.
Captain America is on the threat
We all are.
Sorry, you're on that list. Stars. I feel threatened. Respect.
So much is being communicated through composition. During the argument, each character is brought to or toward the foreground when they speak. And take a moment to pause the video and analyze this final shot. You should notice that Loki's staff has been moved to the foreground. The shaft of the staff is aligned with the top line of the rule of thirds grid, with the Tesseract stone near one of the 4 intersections. The Avengers have been pushed back to the middle ground, and their eye lines now align with the bottom of the grid. The composition is communicating that it is Loki, the owner of the staff, who has the power. He is the one who is causing the argument and turning the Avengers upside down. Hopefully, you have a better understanding of how cinematographers use the rule of thirds to strategically place subjects within the frame, and how they use depth to highlight subjects within that frame to create narrative significance. Of course, Cinematography is an art, and in art, all rules are made to be broken. But now that you know the basics of composition, it is something you will notice in every film you watch. If you have fun examples of movie scenes that use composition in creative ways, share them by posting in the comments below.
Right now, folks, rules are meant to be broken. And the thing is, let's not just break the rules that we don't know. Right. So we must know the rules, master them, practice them, and until we master them, then we can break them. But we don't break them for the sake of breaking the rules. We break the rules to make new ones. See, we follow the trends, and also if we take a detour or we choose not to follow the trends, we create new trends. Okay, right now, as I have said before, that every shot needs to be motivated when you execute it, as we have seen. These the composition of your shot, whatever is in the frame, that is what we call the mise en scene. Whatever is in the frame must be motivated. It must be there for a purpose. It must communicate a certain message. Even your production design, which is the most important aspect of your film, the production design. Why is that why is that particular prop in that scene, and why is it placed in the place where it is placed? Okay, yeah, right. Now, to compare the narrative, fiction narrative and the documentary film, the both must be scripted. And with your fiction film, we have what we call this the synopsis, and also your log line, which epitomizes the essence of the story. This same applies with a documentary filmmaking, because if you don't have your synopsis and your log line, your story is not focused. You're given the brief of a photograph. So about this brief, you take this brief, take this photograph, and then you start planning how are you going to execute this brief, because it's not about the good idea or the greatest of idea that you can come up with. Is the bottom line, or the greatest part of this phenomenon is in the execution. How do you execute it? You can have a great idea, but if it's badly executed, that it's nothing. It's a flop. It doesn't work. So with the documentary now, you're given the brief, you go to your desk. What you think about now is your log line. So in the documentary sphere, we used to call the log line, we used to call it the focus sentence. What would you want this documentary to focus on? It is the angle at which you are going to tackle this story. You research your story, you get your story, and then even before you research your story, you think about what you want to find out from the person, so that you can ask them the right questions. There to channel them into what you want to say. But pretty obviously, they will also redirect the documentary, because in actual facts, it is their story. It's not your story. You only want to get the facts, the truth, or whatever that happened when that photograph was taken. even before and during and after. Okay, yeah. So once you get all your facts from the research and the preliminary interview, let me just say that the preliminary interviews, you could sit down now and start writing your story, the beginning, middle, and the end. Just like you are going to write your fiction story. Documentary can be written. This one especially, except the documentary that is the event that is unfolding right in front of you, where you can just like your sports or the news that you cannot control. But the stories that you research, you can control and you can script. So your camera work or your cinematography will be motivated because you will break down the script and decide what emotion that you want to solicit from your audience and how are you going to execute that in order to get the maximum interest from your audience, and you close it up with a very interesting moments that will be memorable, that will bend into the memory of your audience and give them the overall message of what your intentions were for this film. Okay, that's it for now, folks. Yeah. See you in class. And please, if you have any question, please let's just interact and ask me as many questions as you would have. Okay. So that's it from now from me, folks. So it's Moja, spot on. Adios.